This next segment is perhaps my favorite. This is the opportunity for you to hear from youth who have aged out of the system about what their guardian ad litem did well and what they did not do so well. This is the best way for you to learn how important communication with your client really is. So take heed to their advice.
My attorney, well, she knew my name, she knew all the things I was interested in. She'd always ask me about school, and she'd ask me about my music, which I was especially interested in. So she knew what was important to me.
There was nothing about my personal guardian ad litem that I really liked at all.
Some things that my attorney did that I liked was she always fought for what I wanted. Whatever I had told her, she would fight for and try to make sure that it would get done. The downfall was that she was only listening to me 15 minutes before my court hearing. So even though she was doing her job and what she was supposed to, she wasn't really getting to know me and knowing me as a person and any of my other interests to fully be aware of what I truly wanted and needed.
I didn't really have a lot of contact with my attorney to really know what I liked and what I didn't like. We just really met a few minutes before the court hearings, and I rarely ever attended a court hearing, so I think over the 10 years of being in care, I think I maybe have met her like 4 or 5 times.
She remembered things from time to time. Like, it wasn't just, oh, okay, this, like, she remembered certain things. She'd be like, oh, last time you were doing this, or the time before last you were doing this. So she listened and she kept tabs on me, which I thought was important.
He did not know who I was at all. If I saw him on the street, he wouldn't even recognize me. It's just like he's someone that he never met in his life before. I don't even think he would have known my name if it wasn't for his secretary whenever he called her to let her know I was there.
Some things that she could have done better to get to know me were to contact me in between my court hearings. Just a phone call would have been nice. I understand meeting can be difficult, so just a phone call would have been nice, and not just keeping it very business profession, like actually getting to know me as a person and not just a client or another case.
I met with him 10 minutes before we had a court hearing, and that was it. He would ask me about what I wanted and what I wanted to try to accomplish, but whenever I would tell him, he would tell me just to go along with what CYS was saying, just go with the flow and just cooperate pretty much.
Some things that I wish my attorney had asked me about would have to be how I truly felt, not just what I wanted, because that's all she needed to tell the judge is what I wanted or what was best for me, but how I was feeling about everything. Sorry. How I was feeling about everything, and if it was up to me, what would I do differently and what would I change and what I would plan for myself.
I would have liked some phone calls. I was about 100 miles away from my home county, so it was about a 3-hour drive to get to court hearings. So maybe every 6 months or even once a year, she could have come to pick me up and transport me, so we would have had that time to talk about things that were going on in my life, or even just phone calls, just every once in a while, just seeing how things were going. I didn't even know what her role was while I was in care. I learned this later after I aged out, and I think that would have been really nice to know what her job was and what she could do to help me, so I knew I had somebody to contact if I needed help.
If he would have done the things that my attorney did for me, he would have been an exceptional attorney ad litem, but he really didn't do anything for me. So if he could accomplish those things, he'd be great, but since he didn't, I had to go out of my way and get my own representation.
It would have been very helpful if she would have given me options or different ways of contacting her, whether they were by phone or email or even sending out a letter. My attorney explained everything briefly for me before we would walk into the courtroom, so it made it a little bit easier for me because she would sit me down and just say that my mother in her courts or the children and youth would talk, and then she was going to say something, and she would ask me if I wanted to talk, so then she would make time for me to talk. So she was very good with explaining what was going to happen. It was a brief introduction of what was going to happen, but she at least did explain it to me.
My attorney really didn't explain anything. We just kind of talked about what happened, and she caught up, and then we went in, and then court happened. I didn't really know what was going on. I mean, in the later years I caught on, but it would have helped when I was younger because I would have liked to know what I was going in there for.
No, he didn't, but the kind of person that I am, I would find out ahead of time. I'd get on the internet, see what kind of courts were coming up and what I should expect.
She didn't explain anything. It was just really 5 to 10 minutes of like, what's going on? Is there anything I can do? That kind of stuff. It wasn't really, okay, we're going to go in and, you know, the judge is going to ask you some questions. If you don't feel comfortable, I can help you. It was nothing like that. It wasn't a very personal relationship. She was just another person, a part of the system that I didn't really know. She didn't really explain anything. It was just court was adjourned and I left with my foster parent or the driver that was taking me. There was no really explanation about what was going on, and I don't think that my feelings were really considered about how things were being decided about my life. They didn't really ask me.
No, my guardian at Litem did not explain to me after court what was going to happen next. She would just say, you did good, or, you know, well, court is in 6 months and I'll just see you then.
She really didn't explain a lot to me. I mean, we talked a little after court, just being like, are you okay, are you happy, and take care of that kind of stuff. A lot of explanations weren't really given.
I think it would have been very helpful to kind of know what the proceedings were about. Like, I know there's all these different hearings and everyone's different for a different reason. I think just an explanation of what was going on, what was the purpose of the meeting, and what I can do to advocate for myself would have been very helpful.
I think it would have been very helpful to understand why the judges made the decisions that they did, or any explanation on them, or to fully understand what was happening. Because to me, the only thing that I knew what was happening was I was going home, I was staying in the same placement, or I was moving, or whichever the decision was, I only knew that. And if you have any kind of explanation, it helps. If you don't like the decision, it helps understand it and for you to be able to adapt to whatever was made.
If I could give one piece of advice to the attorneys, it would be to know your child, know who they are, know what they look like, know what they're interested in, not just who they are on the piece of paper, who they actually are.
Don't just take the easy route and follow what CYS says and take the easy path, go off the path, and if it's a little bit rougher, then so be it. It's what they want, it'll make their life better.
My one piece of advice for guardian ad litems would be to stay in contact with your client. I know that they may have a lot of different clients and be juggling a lot of different things in their job, but they have a lot of control over what's going on, and can really be there to speak for us when we can't be. And I think you can't do that if you don't know what's going on with your client and what's affecting them. You can't help them if you only talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes before a hearing.
If I could give one piece of advice to the guardian ad litems, it would be to not treat your clients just as clients, but to try to get to know them as a person, and getting to know them as a person would be contacting them before court dates and truly listening to them, not just getting all the information that you need to walk into the courtroom, but getting extra information to make them feel human and important.